Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to one of my favorite games. I don't have any viewers yet, but when you show up, I would like to welcome you to the stream. Today, I'm not going to be playing For Honor. I'm not going to be doing any of the usual asinine stuff that I do. This playthrough is going to be more focused on the lore of this wonderful game. And when I get the chance, I'm going to be doing this for the other games as well. So let's get started. And there you have it, folks. Our character is an unkindled ash, unfit to even be cinder. And we'll get more into that in a little while. For now, though. We'll go with that. Gonna go with the young white branch again. Oh, here. I actually have a favorite that I enjoy. I'm gonna go with that one, I think. We'll get more into it as we go. So basically, when the bell rings, the flame is in danger, and the Lords of Cinder are called to their thrones. And when they abandon their thrones, they call upon the Ash. The Ash's job is to basically return the lords to their thrones, by force if necessary. Although, as you'll find out rather quickly, most of them failed. Your character, Innocence, is one of the last to awaken. That was called Counter-Strike, by the way. Sometimes you have to take a hit to deal more damage. Here we found the fading soul of a deserted corpse, which... Soul found in a deserted corpse, used to acquire souls. Let the Firekeeper transform this sovereignless soul into a source of strength for the unkindled. Or for to be unkindled is to be a vessel for souls. What that means, in essence, is you're unkindled. You don't, in a sense, have a soul. You're sort of like the Firekeeper, in which... you collect soul, or... Poor Oscar. You never were cut out for this job, were you? Ashin Estus flasks are a rather interesting item, and I'm going to read its description in just a moment after I've cleared this area, because these little bastards like to move around. Alright. Got one more, I think. Oh, two. Ow. That, ladies and gentlemen, was called a backstab. Alright, so... Undead Treasurer. The Undead Treasurer these Ashin Flasks, fill with Estus at bonfires, and drink to restore FP. Quite befitting of an unkindled, an Ashin Estus Flask turns a bonfire's heat cold. That's interesting. Well, this one, in comparison, is much different. The Undead Treasurer these dull grain flasks, fill with Estus at bonfires, and drink to restore HP. The journey of The journey of an undead has always traced the bonfires, and no journey of import has been made without an Estus Flask. That's interesting, because the way it's worded makes me think that this cycle's been going on long before. That which takes place in Dark Souls 1. Maybe not the cycle, but definitely the use of Estus and other such things. Which would make sense because your undead wakes up in a prison in Dark Souls 1. There's a creature back there, but I'm out of practice, so I'm not gonna tangle with him just yet. If you're sitting here, you get the rest emote, which looks like this, amusingly enough. It's just the same way he was sitting when he sat at the bonfire. Now I think I'll go tangle with the big guy. Backstabs are nice ways to deal with archers easily. Go ahead and get rid of him. Ow. Oh. Okay, I'm gonna stop trying to parry now. It's not getting me anywhere. Except injured. Seems I'm far too out of practice for parrying. I have to work on that in a little while. If you look over there, that's an elder Titanite lizard. Very nasty creatures. But easily predicted, as you may have noticed. I mean, if you've got a 100 defense shield, you will not have the most difficult times with this guy as long as you can keep your shield up. And predict his attacks, of course. Oh, and if you can stumble him, or I can mess that up awful. I messed it up a moment ago, but you can actually stagger him if you deal enough damage, which gets you a free riposte. Like this. And that should be the rest of his HP. Yep. And so we get a Titanite scale. I think there's only like 5 or 6 of them in the game, but they get much more risky to try and take on the farther you go. Titanite scales are, as you can see, used to reinforce soul transposed weapons to +4. And what that means I will get into later, because there's a specific item I need to get before I can even consider showing you. But its description reads, Titanite altered by a soul reinforces soul transposed weapons to +4. Weapons forged by soul transposition can only be reinforced by Titanite of the same kind. In rare cases, crystal lizards devour souls, growing to monstrous proportion and leaving these great scales. So that lizard got so big because he was devouring souls, which we use for currency, oddly enough. I'm still not overly sure how that works. Oh, excuse me. This starting area has not got a whole lot of risk to it as long as you pay attention. You definitely can't die here. It's Dark Souls. Excuse me. Have to be very mindful of everything going on around you, or you will meet a very untimely end. And you can kill this guy. I know. Ow. Or I can mess up the parry again. Anyways. Kill that guy, pick up his item, but as soon as you walk down there, those guys are gonna stand up, so be ready for that. Down there is an item that I will get in a moment. Yeah. I apologize. I'm actually having to open the stream on my phone so I can make sure of everything, because it's not the PlayStation is not the greatest about monitoring the stream, is all. So I have to take precautions to make sure that gets done. I hope you all can understand. Oh dear. I misjudged their damage. Finally a parry. My goodness. Get quite a lot of souls right now. Ow. And these guys aren't likely to drop anything of note, so I'm just gonna kinda hurry through here. No. Not really much of a threat. And these are actually going to come in handy here in just a moment, when we take on the boss of the area, Udex Gundyr. Not a whole lot of cause for concern from Udex. His lore, though, is rather sad. He's... Oh, thank goodness. I occasionally have trouble getting across that gap. So, the firebombs don't really have a whole lot to say. Oh, I didn't realize we'd gotten these. Soul of a deserted, or soul found in a desert. Oh wait, I've already read that. And that one, the description is virtually the same. The dark sign has a particularly interesting thing. I forgot this was actually a thing because there are certain steps you have to take in order to become hollowed in this game. The dark sign is the sign of an accursed undead. The dark sign returns its bearer to the last bonfire rested at, or the bonfire at Firelink's shrine, but at the cost of all souls held. Carriers of the dark sign are reborn after death, and eventually lose their minds, turning hollow. And so it is they are driven from their homelands. That, to me, is interesting, because it doesn't state whether it's because of the fact that they go hollow, or the fact that they return after dying. Which is also a great way to tie in respawning in this game, in case any... Titanite shard, and then we've got the Titanite shard, obviously, which are your basic reinforcement for my longsword, for example. Titanite shard for weapon reinforcement reinforces weapon to +3. Titanite shards are fragments of the legendary slabs. Titanite is etched into weapons to reinforce. Etched into weapons to reinforce. So I'm not quite certain how that works. Because you would think that it's forged into, but it says etched. A rather curious thing, in my opinion. Just a rather curious thing that crosses my mind occasionally. And for those of you who are wondering about the name that I put in, Maximus the Lost, well, I'm not going to get into that in this series or video if I don't decide to continue it. But it pertains to a lot of the backstory and storyline for my character in-game, who I will not be showcasing in this video. Well, maybe. And here we have Udex Gundyr. I'm actually going to go and restock my items. Before coming back, because while Udex is not a huge threat, accidents happen. And then I'm just gonna make it kind of quick. Sprint through over this way without paying attention to any of the others. Also, if you drop off a ledge and hit R1 as you're falling, you can do a drop attack. It's particularly useful in certain situations, but in other ones it can be fatal. It's not always worth it just because you can. But I don't know. It's just me. It's just my thought process on the whole thing. Other people may, you know, take the risk no matter what, just at the chance of, you know, massive damage at the cost of their own health bar, but to me it's just not really worth it, honestly. Now, the sword in him is particularly interesting to me because it's the same blade that's used to make bonfires, which we will get to witness after I beat him. His axe, though, is rather cool, to be honest. Sorry. You know what? No, I'm not sorry. If you're here to witness the lore stream, which means getting to deal with all of my odd thoughts. Udex, many of you may not know, can in fact be parried. Or you can also just walk right under him. But okay, now it's time to get away and put on my fire bombs and then get hit like a fool. Going to drink some Estus right quick and swap to the fire bombs. These deal moderate damage to him, and if I could avoid it, free damage. But I'm not the best at this game. As I said, I'm far too out of practice. Ow. God, I don't remember that taking so long to use. Luckily, however, if you have a decent shield, you can block all of his damage, and that's all there is to that. The item we acquired is known as the coiled sword. Thrust in Shrine Bonfire to activate Bonfire Warp. Sword missing from the Shrine Bonfire cannot be equipped as a weapon. Thrust into the Shrine Bonfire to restore its power and enable travel between bonfires. The sword is only bequeathed to chosen Ash, as judged by the Udex, who awaits the arrival of Ash as a scabbard. So, he literally impaled himself with this sword, so that the only way you could get it from him was to pull it from his chest. And once it's removed from his chest, you have no choice but to fight in order to pass or fail his judgment. And we find out later, it was not all his decision to be here. Hold on just a second. I seem to remember there being an item. Oh no, it's over there. See, this is a trick. Because this guy doesn't activate until you go over there and grab that item. Occasionally, if you only slightly fail your parry, you'll hear that shield thump sound, and you'll actually take reduced damage compared to what you would have had you not tried to stop it at all. If you parry too late, however, you're gonna take, I think it's like, damage and a half instead of the normal 1 damage. And if you walk up on the road right here, these guys activate, and it's really not good. I completely flubbed everything I was trying to do just then. And I'm probably gonna die because I messed up that encounter. I'm just kidding, by the way, I've got it. These guys have so little poise, it's almost saddening. The kick, by the way, is a good way to lower someone's stamina when they're blocking you. And so, it leaves them open to a riposte, which can deal massive amounts of damage depending on how you build your character. Or really, any way you build your character. And there's a specific ring you can get later on that further increases the damage dealt off of a riposte or a backstab. Sometimes, when you come here, there's a guy standing right on this ledge, and you can reenact all of your 300 fantasies upon him. As if you walk towards him like this, he doesn't notice you're there. Now, I can actually read this one. Alright, so let me get to a safe spot, and then we'll read the items we've picked up. Alright, so I just picked up the Ember and the Homeward Bone. So we'll start with the Homeward Bone. Bone fragment reduced to white ash. Return to last bonfire used for resting or to the shrine bonfire. Bonfires are sustained by the bones of the undead. In rare cases, their previous owner's strong urge to seek bonfires enchants their bones with a homeward instinct. So, in other words, homeward bones are the bones of fallen ash or undead that were trying to make it to a bonfire. They had an insane need to make it to a bonfire, and it enchanted their bones, allowing others to use their desire to return. And that is the purpose of the coiled sword, to form a bonfire in this very pit. If you look closely, I don't think I have a pair of binoculars, sorry, but can I buy some off of the handmaiden?
A pleasure to make thine acquaintance, Ashin One. I am but a humble handmaid of the shrine. Weapons, armor, trinkets, and spells. I've lots of little things to ease the burden of a weary traveler. And yes, I'm undead too, but not so charitable as to give my goods away. Ashen One, fetch souls and bring them to me. As is thy wont, no?
So, for all intents and purposes, she is the shrine vendor. She doesn't do a whole... Actually, she doesn't do anything except sit here and sell you things. But for now, I'm going to pick up the white sign soapstone, and she doesn't sell binoculars. That's interesting. At least not yet, I don't think. What's this? Tower key. The tower key you need 20,000 souls to get into, so we won't be going there for quite some time. because I'm going to use these souls and level up. And you know, you don't get a whole lot out of fading souls. They only give 50 souls, but for just starting out, that's not bad.
Welcome to the bonfire, Undead One. I'm a firekeeper. I tend to the flame and tend to thee. The lords have left their thrones and must be delivered to them. To this end, I am at thy side.
She's an interesting lady, but if you just want a simplistic response, she is your level up hub.
Then touch the darkness within me. Take nourishment from these sovereignless souls.
For now, I'm gonna bump those two up to 10. I'm actually gonna bump that one up to 14 and keep it even. I'm gonna try and keep him as an all-around build. So when I level up next, I'll bring up my endurance and attunement.
Ashin One, to be unkindled is to be a vessel for souls. Sovereignless souls will become thy strength. I will show thee how. Ashen One, bring me souls plucked from their vessels. Ashen One, to sovereignless.
Okay, so she has nothing else to say after that. If you've played the other games, then you know about the Crestfallen, and this game is no exception.
Ah, another one roused from the sleep of death. Well, you're not alone. We unkindled are worthless. Can't even die right. Gives me conniptions. And it'd have us seek the lords of Cinder and return them to their moulding thrones. But we're talking true legends, with the metal to link the fire. Not fit to lick their boots. Don't you think?
Aside from his possible foot fetish, there's actually an item you can get to him after you defeat one of the, or you can get from him after you defeat the bosses, and his storyline is one that is rather I don't know the full effect of it, but it's interesting nonetheless.
Joke. Asking us to seek the lords of Cinder and return them to their moulding thrones. We're talking true legends, those who...
Okay, so he had nothing new to say either. It's rather odd. I remember them having more dialogue when you first meet them. And later on, we'll come back, and there'll be a guy just hanging out right here. Here, you'll notice one of the thrones is not empty. And this little man plays an important role in us, in our story as we go along.
All that unkindled, and a seeker of lords. I am that little caller. Look not in bewilderment as I say. I linked the fire long ago, becoming the lord of Cinder. If substantiation be thy want, set thine eyes upon my charred corpse. This sad cadaver, no need to be coy. Have a closer look.
For now, he doesn't actually offer us anything except dialogue, but later, there's an item we can give him that is quite useful to us.
Knowest thou of our purpose? 5 thrones will take 5 lords as kingdom according of the fire. The fast fading flame must preserve this world. A reenactment of the first linking of the fire. So it is, I became a lord of Cinder. I may be but small, but I will die a colossus. Knowest thou of...
Okay, so he doesn't have any extra dialogue either, so we'll be moving on from him. And the last figure we're here to meet is rather amusing to me because he was brought back purely for fan service.
Well, a newcomer, I see. I am Andre. I serve at this shrine as a humble smith, forging weapons. You're in search of the Lords of Cinder, I trust. A toilsome journey, I'd wager. You'll require good arms. Let me smith you weapons. I am a smith. Such is my purpose.
While you can't actually buy any items from Andre, you can use his services to level up your own equipment.
Forgive me, I don't want to see my work squandered.
It's odd though, because he has no dialogue.
Tis good to see ye in good health. What needs smith?
He doesn't refer to the last time he was alive in Dark Souls 1. Except for one small bit of dialogue, which I can't access just yet.
Weapons and protection are sturdy enough by and large. But when overused, they'll eventually break. When their durability is low, repair becomes a necessity. Use a powder, or simply rest at a bonfire. But should chance impel them break, bring them me. I'll hammer them back into shape. They take no pleasure in breaking, I assure ye. So handle them with care, if you would.
He also lets you change the amount of Estus Flasks you want for either. Unfortunately, though, it's one or the other as far as the majority goes. For now, I'll keep it like that, because I don't have a whole lot of use for the Ashin Estus. So, with that, we're gonna get into it, I think. All of my stuff seems to be in order, and I've talked to everyone. So, let's, get into the thick of it. And we are going to go to the High Wall of Lothar. This right here is a destroyed bonfire. You're not given any insight or reasoning into why it's been destroyed. It's just destroyed. Which begs the question of how did we get here? It's still a gorgeous sight to walk out and see this for the first time. The way they presented it is rather amazing. And the best part is, you can actually get to these places. Lothar Castle is an in-game area. Although, honestly, if you look at it, it kind of reminds me of Bloodborne. The city in Bloodborne, Yharnam. Reminds me of Yharnam, especially with the way the two bridges are. That looks a bit like the cathedral ward over there. Come down here, you activate this. Now, if you decide to go this way, there's a guy over there that gives you a Titanite shard and a crossbow, I believe. But in my opinion, it's more difficult, or it's not really worth your time at the moment, unless you just want to be a completionist. Which, ladies and gentlemen, I am a completionist. These guys don't really mean you any harm, but in my opinion, they're free souls, so why wouldn't you? And then you've got these asshats. Dogs. Because they feel in every game that they have to screw you over in the worst way possible. Now, this is kind of a BS fight, because you deal with him, and as you're fighting him, the guy with the halberd will run up. So the goal is to deal with him as quickly as humanly possible. Like that. Occasionally, he will even drop his great axe for you, which is a really good weapon starting out, assuming you have the strength to wield it. This guy has about as much health as the other guy, and I think even deals as much damage. I don't recall, but I'm not really interested in finding out. Now, this area is a little tricky, especially if you don't kill him. You want to kill him as quickly as possible, because he transforms into one of the big rat guys like Gundyr. Unfortunately though, if you kill him before he transforms, he does not give you a Titanite shard. So it's a rather, oh, it's a long bow, my apologies. But it's a rather good way to farm Titanite shards early on. And level up your weapon so that you're prepared for the next few areas. I may do a little of it off screen, but I'm not gonna go through anything important without you guys. So, thing to note, if you walk too far down here, he'll stand up, but also if you grab that item, he'll get up. In here, you can't open this yet, but this is a shortcut that we'll get to later on. Just making our way back up here and down the other side to actually start the area. Now, this area can be a bit of BS if you're not careful, because I don't know if I can see him just yet, but I've got to hurry over here and kill this guy. Because if you don't, he will cause everything in the nearby area to become hostile to you, and that is really, really not good. An interesting thing to note, these are hollows. In fact, each and every one of them. But they're not hostile. Hollows have always been depicted as hostile creatures that have no wits, and while they do seem a little, you know, off the handle, they're not hostile. I don't know if that's because, you know, you're an ash, or if they're not fully hollowed yet, but I need to kill this guy right quick. Because he activates all of these guys, including several enemies upstairs that I was not aware of early on. The weapons that guy was using, you can actually get later on. It's a combo weapon. And the dragon is of no consequence. Don't worry. He's actually dead. No idea why. Doesn't give you any reasoning. It's just, he's dead. And if you come up here, this guy activates. And then, moving up, he activates. I remember there being another guy, but maybe I just killed him. Ah, yes, now I got the binoculars. Now I can show you some of the things, like in the bonfire pit. And then we've got one more item to pick up right here, and it's one you may miss, or may have already missed, depending on whether or not you've played this game. I'm just gonna walk over here and drop down, and then right here is a gold pine resin, which is unbelievably useful later on. Backstab him. And come over here and finish up this guy. And there's one more guy hiding behind those boxes right there, but it's just as simple to do this. And you can't go out that way because it's been destroyed. I apologize for my voice cracking, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not sure what's been going on with me lately. I think I'm coming down with a cough, or a cold. Maybe a cough, but as far as I can tell, it's a cold because my sinuses have been acting funny as well. Anyway. Just making your way through here. And on this corpse, there used to be a greatsword. But there's just the soul of a deserted corpse on him. Walking out here, do not go that way immediately. Ow. Ow. But also, try and time your parry properly. Instead of being like me and completely ruining it. Instead of going that way, run up this way. Don't even worry with them. Just run in this door. They're of no threat to you once you're in here. And... he should blowtorch this area again. Which is why I haven't rushed up to... Ow. Can I even... Ow. I made that fight a lot more dangerous than it had to be. And if you come down here, there's a mimic. So do not just... Alright, I'll show you. When you come down here, because I know you will, do not open this chest. Do not. And don't listen to this guy either. He's trying to get you killed. The way you can tell is that chain. When it's an authentic chest, it's wrapped in a neat circle. This, as I like to call it, is an imposter box. I know it's actually called a mimic, but imposter box sounds more amusing. To me, anyway. There's nothing behind here, from what I remember. Yeah. Just, I have a Zelda problem. I like to break boxes and pots. And especially barrels. Now, I am going to come out and get this treasure, but I'm not going to do it yet. I'm actually going to jump across here and then run across to the next bonfire before I do anything with him. Because I'm out of Estus and he will kill me. These guys are dickheads. Like, complete dickheads. As shown here. If you can avoid doing so, I would urge you to avoid fighting them early on. But I think I'm actually going to end it here because I have some things that I need to do. But I will be back later and we will clear this area and the next one in order to make it up to you. I will see you all next time. Bye-bye.